Hello, my name is Brendan Mysliwiec. I'm the Appalachian Trail Conservancy's Director of Federal Policy and Legislation. I'm responsible for all federal level lobbying by the Conservancy. I advise the regional directors when it comes to state and regional level advocacy. And I'm just going to take a few minutes today to talk about why it is important for clubs and maintainers, volunteers in trail maintenance to participate in federal advocacy for the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, and I would say indeed for all of the priorities that the Conservancy identifies in coordination with the maintaining clubs. So I think the first and most important part of talking about advocacy, which is known by many terms, I'm a registered lobbyist, so what I do is technically lobbying. Although I do is really no different from what anyone else does in expressing their interests and issues of importance to the federal government. The difference is that I get paid for it, which is what makes me a lobbyist and not just an advocate. So first and foremost, advocating to the federal government is a constitutionally protected right. The First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And while we may not consider everything that we want to speak to the federal government about to be a grievance, that is how we are constitutionally protected. It's our right to free speech, our right to freely assemble, to freely associate, and to petition the government, to get the government to listen to what we want the government to listen to us about. ATC has become more active in federal advocacy in recent years. Historically, our advocacy was focused on the actual establishment and management of the trail itself, of the treadway, of making sure that we had a connected trail, making sure that there was a protected corridor, making sure that there were legal mechanisms in place to protect that land and to support the agencies as they supported us, the conference, the clubs, and the volunteers. Nowadays, we've taken more of a landscape view of conservation, which is to say that if we can't protect what the trail was protected to celebrate, the natural, scenic, and cultural resources of the Appalachian Mountain Range, then there really is no trail to protect itself. So while there must be special attention paid to the treadway, to the footpath is itself only one section of the congressionally designated Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And in order to protect everything, we have to look beyond the treadway. There are some who believe that federal advocacy is not just something that we have taken up with more vigor in the recent past, but is something that we maybe have never done. And I would say that that is false. It was an incredible transformational act of advocacy to establish the AT before it was congressionally protected. And gaining the congressional protection, our combined effort to write the National Trail System Act and to implement it over these past 50 years is simply remarkable. And honestly, the volunteer-centric and volunteer-centered Appalachian National Scenic Trail is daily advocacy. Showing up and doing trail work is a daily reaffirmation of the importance of this system of management that is provided for in law, that we got Congress to pass and the president to enact. So advocacy has always been a part of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, of the Appalachian Trail, from the moment that Benton Mackay published the article outlining a trail along the ridgelines of the Appalachian Mountains. So why is it important for clubs to participate in advocacy and not just leave it up to ATC? ATC is the umbrella convening and connecting organization. We are conduits for the clubs to participate in a broader federal process, but we do not substitute the club's participation in that process. There are things that many ATC staffers can speak to with a level of authority and from the perspective of a constituent, but those are things that are oftentimes better heard from the volunteers, from the clubs themselves. ATC recognizes it as one of our responsibilities to make sure that the clubs know when those opportunities are presented, as we are able to do. But when it comes to telling the story of maintaining the trail and how volunteerism is essential and how the management of the trail isn't something that just happens magically, but it takes a good deal of effort and coordination and attention, that's something that is best delivered from the volunteer, from the maintainer perspective. The other important thing, and I touched on this very briefly, is constituency and what it means to be a constituent. I live in Washington, D.C. I, as the head of ATC's lobbying operation, operating under our CEO and our VP for conservation and trail programs, I don't have a vote that represents me in Congress. And even if I did, the trail doesn't run through the district. So there's less of a sort of proprietary appreciation that even though many trail users live in the district, because the trail isn't here, it's not something that belongs to the district the way that it belongs to, someone representing the state of Maine, or someone representing the Maryland 8th Congressional District. Those are people who have a proprietary interest in the trail because the trail is located within their constituency. And if they have constituents who feel strongly about the trail, those are the most important opinions that member can be presented with when it comes to trail management, landscape priorities, so on and so forth. So it's incredibly important for the on-the-ground folks who live in the states, who live in the districts, to be able to avail themselves of their right to free speech, free assembly, to petition the government for redress of grievances and say, excuse me, Congresswoman, excuse me, Senator, you need to understand my perspective as a maintainer. You need to understand what it means to our community, what it means to our district, to our state, to our country, to the world, to have this incredible resource protected forever for all to enjoy. Some people may believe that any communication with members of Congress or their staffs is political advocacy. And I would say that it's not. It is policy advocacy. As people who care about this incredible public trust resource, we cannot look at our public trust resource as an inherently political thing. Because once we do that, we are automatically isolating anyone who doesn't agree with that determination from being able to participate in our movement. And it is a movement. It is a continuous movement to maintain, manage, and administer the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. So please don't think about these things as political, because then they are political. And they don't get to be a gathering place. They just get to be a point of division for many people. And our purpose with the ANST is to bring people together. It's to bring people together to care for the resource. It's to bring people together to appreciate the resource. It's to bring people together to understand and act on the belief that volunteerism is essential to maintaining our public lands, and that we are all stewards. We all have some degree of responsibility to make sure that the natural, cultural, and scenic resources of the Appalachian Mountains from Georgia to Maine are protected forever for all to enjoy. There are many things I think that we could discuss, and I hope that we will be discussing over the course of our infinite relationship between the Conservancy and the clubs and the public at large. But I hope that this short look into the way that we at the Conservancy think about federal advocacy and the importance of clubs speaking up, speaking from their personal perspective and from their perspective on the ground in the states and in the districts, I hope that we can enter into a renewed era of collaboration. When we have worked most closely together, we did the two most important things we've ever done as a group of like-minded people. One, building the Appalachian Trail and two, securing the protection from Congress of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. With the next 100 years ahead of us, who's to say what we'll be able to accomplish? But I know that the only way that we'll be able to accomplish it is by working together. Thank you.